This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
Just a warning, this episode contains references to suicidal ideation and might be disturbing for some listeners. Please take care. Welcome to She Wasn't Born Yesterday, the pod that fearlessly chats about all things affecting us ladies who are 40 plus fabulous.
Well, and the guys that want to know what we think.
Well, them too. I'm Janet Evans, advertising creative.
And I'm Jenny Woodhouse, semi-retired social worker.
In other words, you're busier than ever. We're J&J and we're super thrilled you're with us for She Wasn't Born Yesterday. Gorgeous. Well, first of all, I'm just wondering if you could tell me a little bit about any spectacular successes you've had in the kitchen and any spectacular fails.
I have no recollection of any spectacular successes, but I do have lots of recollections of spectacular failures. I think I'm the only person I know that's actually ever burnt a boiled egg. How about you?
Wow. You know, that happens a lot. I think that happens a lot. And I think our next guest is going to be able to support that theory. But in fact, I don't have any spectacular success, but I do have a spectacular story around a dessert fail because desserts are my absolute nemesis. Those ingredients, when I get them out, they know, they can sense my fear, they can smell it. They go, yes, we're going to get you, girl. But I've got one over them because every dessert I make that doesn't work out, I just tell everyone it's eaten mess. It's it's meant to be like that. It's deconstructed.
Does that work for you?
Well,
do people actually believe that?
Well, you know, sometimes, especially if you distract them with a sort of a twist of a secret ingredient like licorice, which is unexpected in an eaten mess.
Well, it would be unexpected.
But our guest today has had more spectacular successes, we feel, than we'll ever have in our lifetimes. And she needs no introduction, but we will introduce her anyway. She is the OG Australian MasterChef 2009. She's a TV presenter, radio show host, cooking school entrepreneur, published author, including her own memoir, and foxtrot dancer. She's also 40 plus fabulous. Julie Goodwin, a big, saucy, beautifully plated up. Welcome to She Wasn't Born Yesterday.
Oh, thank you. Gosh, what an intro.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, Julie, it's so good to see you. You look amazing. I love those glasses. They're gigantic.
Thank you. And look, I've got a little brooch that matches them.
Oh, where did you get that? I want one of those.
I found that and I thought, I can't resist that. I was some little store, just had some funny little brooches. I thought, hang on a minute. That's my glasses.
Wow.
Just in case I lose these ones, I've got these ones.
Do people ever look at because it's on your left lapel pocket, like at boob level, do people ever look at those glasses and think that they're looking, no, at your eyes? No.
Eyes are up here, pal. Glasses are there, but eyes are up here.
Oh, gorgeous. Well, in your memoir, which is absolutely amazing, it's called Your Time Starts Now, which are words to strike fear into any MasterChef contestant's heart. You do talk candidly about your struggles with mental health. There's no sugarcoating there, anxiety, depression, PTSD. And we'd like to get to that for dessert. But for entree, we'd actually love to chat to you about a really exciting initiative you're involved with. Tell us all about Dinner Club.
Oh, so Dinner Club is a cooking program that I'm piloting at the moment up at Frank Baxter Juvenile Detention Centre. And the idea that I had around it was just to get into the Juvenile Detention Centre and teach these boys how to cook, but for me, far more importantly, how to share the responsibility of cooking and how to eat around a table as a family and, how to delegate the washing up and all the things that surround cooking. So not just your hard cooking skills, but the sharing of a job and the sharing of food. So the way I came to that was I actually used to work up at Frank Baxter literally 30 years ago.
Wow.
As a senior youth worker I was up there, which is kind of like a fancy word for, warden, I guess. I carried keys and, worked with the lads 30 years ago. And, you know, in this sort of, as we'll get to later, the sort of rebuilding of my life, I had to figure out what do I do now? What's my purpose? It just seemed to me that the idea of cooking and the idea of youth work, which is what my origins are, came together in this place. And so I just started chatting with the guys up there, and they've been amazing, because there's a lot of hoops to jump through to get a cooking course into a custodial environment, because you obviously can't have anything metal, you can't have knives, you can't,
I was going to say the old kitchen knife aspect.
There's
a big saucepan.
There's a lot more reasons to say no than there are to say yes. So I'm very, very grateful that the organisation has been really open to me coming in, and we've played around with the format, and we're still working on it. You know, it's not a set in stone program yet. My goal is that it'll be a program that can be rolled out into other detention centres, potentially prisons, potentially rehabs, halfway houses, anywhere where I think that, community centres, there's all sorts of places that would benefit from the idea of community coming together and eating together. But I'm very interested in the idea of isolation being one of the biggest problems that we're faced with
That's
in
fantastic.
modern society, and that the idea that we can bring people together. So my hope is that these lads will, when they leave, they've got something that they can carry out into whatever household they end up in, whether it's their family of origin, whether it's the family they create, whether it's a halfway house, whether it's, some kind of group home, or even on their own, that they can take some pride in the preparing of a meal. And there's some rules around, sit at the table and say, you don't have to like it, and you don't have to finish it, but you've got to try everything on the table.
That before.
And that idea of all my food is served communally, almost all my food I serve communally, so that people have to pass and they have to share, and they have to look to either side of them and say, have you had seconds yet? Is there anyone all right if I have the last chicken drumstick? Because people who've grown up, particularly people who've grown up without food security, there's a real, I've got to get everything I can while I can, because if I don't, I miss out and I go hungry. And that is pure survival. There is no judgment on that. When people grow up without food security, they're in survival mode. And so I'm trying to introduce the idea that if we all look after each other, we don't have to spend so much time looking out for ourselves, and that as a community, we can all be okay.
Yeah, and is this because a lot of these kids come from, or maybe they've been in juvie for a long time and they've never actually been shown how to cook anything or have any role models at home to learn from?
Yeah, look, it's really easy to sort of make assumptions about the backgrounds of boys that are in juvenile detention. But what I've learned, and I started to learn this in my cooking school when we started having kids from family and community services come through, and this is where sort of it started from as well, is that there's a whole spectrum of different reasons why there are kids in juvie, why there are kids in the care of family and community services, why there are kids living in can you even say non-traditional households now? What's a traditional household these days?
Exactly.
But we're all raised in different circumstances with different considerations, different ways of being. And some kids have grown up in really dysfunctional households. Some of the kids that came through the kitchen with facts, and some of the kids in the juvenile detention had never sat down at a table before. They've never cooked, certainly never cooked. Some of the kids coming here to learn how to cook would say to me, I'd say, okay, what's your favourite dinner? And it's like, well, what do you mean favourite? It's 2-minute noodles. They pour a boiling cup into a cup of noodles and take it into their bedroom in their group home and eat it sitting on their bed. That was dinner. Some kids have grown up in households that, you would consider to be the same as yours, but then they may have followed a group of peers into a terrible set of decisions that have brought them here. So, like those assumptions about what kind of family these guys come from are not necessarily correct. Sometimes they've come from a beautiful family who have just lost their grasp on their child for a little while, So I try and approach it all with no judgment and no assumptions. It's easy to assume that none of you know anything about how to sit at a family table, and that's not necessarily true. So I think it's just, no matter what background you've come from, I believe we all benefit from a sense of community. And for me, obviously with what I love to do, the easiest way to build community is to sit around a table. And I wish we had more of it. I wish the world leaders would do it,
Such a good idea.
That's true.
I do. I wish they'd all bring a dish that speaks to something that's important to them. Sit down, we all share the food, we all share the story, and then let's pick back up the arms race or whatever it is you've got going on and see how you go.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
once you've heard about your nonna's gnocchi that you made sitting on her bench top, let's see how you go with those conversations.
That's so good. And it's hard to be aggressive when someone points out you've got tabbouleh in your teeth, or, you know, isn't it?
That's right.
Absolutely. Or you're wiping the last bits of tiramisu off your chin, you know.
It does seem to level people out.
Do you have a big clock on the wall with the kids? And
No, I actually try and take all that pressure out. We've got to stick to a time. But I only bring up the time when the people are faffing around. Come on, fellas. If we're going to have dessert, we've got to get on with this bit now.
That will encourage them.
And some of them are so keen and they're so into it. And some of them, every time they finish the exact task I gave them to do, they'll go find a chair to sit on. So come on. If you're done with that, we've got some, the floor over here might need a little sweep before we leave. So, yeah, it's really great.
Gorgeous. Well, let's just rewind and go back a few courses and talk about you and your life, because it's a fascinating life and it's been incredible and something that most of us, have never experienced, being a celebrity chef.
Well, I would say to you, actually, mine is a very ordinary life. It's just a couple of extraordinary things happened.
That's a really good way to look at it. But something happened to you, and this is all in your memoir, which is absolutely very powerful. Something happened to you when you were a child. You were just around 7 years old. Can you tell us about that and how it shaped your life subsequently?
Well, look, and as I say in the book, the only reason I touch on it is in case there's anyone else out there who's had a similar experience and who still carries burden or blame over that. And the other reason I touch on it is because it did have a profound impact on my whole life, and I didn't even realise what that impact was until the last couple of years. I did experience sexual abuse, and that was something that I packed away in a box and did not come out into my conscious mind again until I was 16. And when it did, it was unwelcome. It was an unwelcome intrusion into my teenage life. And so I did my best to pack it away again. But, of course, it wouldn't go quite all the way away again. The old brain wasn't quite as adept at packing that up. And, what I now know is that that impacted everything. And until I processed it, fully and properly, it has plagued every part of my life. So it's really important, if that stuff comes up, I think that we look at it and actually seek some help to process it. I could not have processed it by myself. I tried and I did it in all sorts of destructive ways, and none of it worked until I found the right therapist to help me through. I can look at this stuff, I can process it, I can let go of any self-blame, which unfortunately is where so many people end up. It's very true. It's somehow my fault.
On average, Julie, it takes about 20 to 25 years for someone to actually speak up about child sexual assault. So you're very typical in that way.
I was closer to 40 years, but yeah.
Well, we're talking average. Average is 25 years.
And you're above average.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. What was it that prompted you, I guess, to think back on it again and wonder, is this having an impact on me?
I fell so completely apart. I needed to figure out why, because I needed that to never happen again. And I'll say it again, I found the right person doing the right kind of therapy. And that was a long process too. I had a lot of false starts, I guess, and also a lot of people that I went to see for a short period of time who I drew something from, but they weren't my long-term solution, but I still got something from them. I had to address all the things, and I didn't want to. And some of the reason that my therapy's failed in the past is because I remember walking into a psychiatrist once, and I just said, I'm not going to do that cliche thing where we talk about our childhood, because he tried to talk about childhood, and I'm like, that's such a cliche. That's a cop-out. Anyone who blames their childhood on what their bad behaviour now is just a cop-out. What an idiot. Honestly, I was so, and that's me being hard on myself. I would never say that to somebody else, but that's how I spoke to myself. And it wasn't until I found someone who said, you wouldn't speak to your 7-year-old self. You know, if you met yourself now, if you met a 7-year-old child, and I can't even talk about that, would I treat my granddaughter like that? Would I blame my granddaughter if her parents weren't together anymore? God, no. You know, but I blamed myself. And actually what you learn is that you build up quite a lot of your persona because of what happens to you when you're little. You build up quite a lot of your behaviours because of your fears around that. You know, I don't ever want to be left again the way my father left. I don't ever want to be hurt again the way I was hurt back then. And so, you know, for me, and it's different for everybody, but the personality traits that came to the fore for me were people-pleasing, perfectionism, got to be the shiny person, got to be the happy person, got to be the overachiever. And it wasn't until I could go back and address all that stuff that I'm like, you know, actually, when I start to feel anxious, when I can't say no and there's too much going on and I can't say no and I'm getting overwhelmed and it's the wheels are starting to fall off and I can identify that and feel that now. So now I say, which part is trying to help me? And quite often it's the 7-year-old trying to be super shiny so that nobody will leave and so that the family will stay together so that we'll all be safe. Say to that 7-year-old, it's okay. It's okay. We're grown-ups now. No one's leaving us. We are okay. And we can say no to that thing and the world is not going to fall apart. Or I can say to my hyper-perfectionist, overachieving 17-year-old, suicidal 17-year-old, I can say, you actually don't have to win everything you do, honey. There's going to be enough winning for you in this life. And it's not always going to mean you beat somebody else. Sometimes you can win and everyone else can win as well. Something my 17-year-old had no concept of, because if I wasn't coming first, I was coming last. And I was putting myself at risk for being left, you know, and being alone. And if I wasn't the best, then I was the worst. And I couldn't face that. And you know, it was at that moment where I thought, I'm not going to get through these exams and be the best. This is not coming together, that I wound up in the hospital after an attempt on my own life. The question about why I had to go back to that, and I get asked quite a lot, why would you go back? Why would you look at all that? So painful, just leave it be. I couldn't leave it be because it was killing me. It was killing me as a 49-year-old. And I just needed to go back and have some healing conversations with those little parts, those people that tried to help me, you know, and even the 49-year-old was trying to help me.
Yeah.
Even the 49-year-old who said, this is all too painful and what it's doing is creating pain for everybody else in your life. I have a solution. I have a solution and it's going to solve everything. So that is a very, very unwell part who's trying to help in that way. So the healing, the therapy, all the things I have to do in a very disciplined and ongoing way are part of why I can talk about this now and why I do talk about this now, because I think there are so many of us who are breaking our necks trying to be all things to all people and very harsh on ourselves and completely willing to help anybody else but not willing to extend ourselves a bit of compassion and a bit of forgiveness and a bit of leeway. And that perhaps if we can hear anything that resonates, anything. And, you know, I'm happy to talk to you about all the signs and symptoms that led me to where I was that are maybe red flags that we ought to pay attention to. It's part of my mission now because I was nearly not here. And I've got people reaching out to me now who are at that point, and it's hard to know what to say to them other than, please don't stop trying to get help. If you haven't found the right therapist, find a different therapist. If you haven't found the right person to talk to, and I actually think it's important to find somebody who's outside of your family, someone with no skin in the game, you know. Your family love you and they hurt for you. Your friends love you and they hurt for you. You need to find someone who actually is a step or two or three removed from that and who has a bigger picture overview and who's seen it all before. And I promise you, no matter what it is you think is too shameful to talk about, there are therapists who have seen it all before. You find the right one and you can lay out whatever it is. You can get it off your chest. You can bring it out into the daylight. Once it dies, shame dies in daylight.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's really interesting because we were actually talking about this on the way here, and because Jen works with a lot of women who've been abused as children, and you were saying, like, just talk about it, isn't it? Like,
yeah, to get it out of your ruminating brain and out through your mouth.
You need the help. You need the support, though, to understand for your body and your parts of your brain to understand it's not happening now. I don't need to have this flight, fight, freeze, fawn response. I don't have to hyperventilate. It's not happening now. And so you need someone with the skill to be able to bring you back.
Absolutely.
From that, bring you back into the room, back into your body, back into the present moment. So it's a risky thing to do all by yourself or with someone who's unskilled, because you could end up in a bad way.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to talk about it, but I also think it's important to have the right structure around you before you attempt to sort of go down some kind of rabbit hole by yourself.
Yeah. That's right. Your amygdala in your brain, which sets off your fight-flight system, can't tell the difference between past, present and future. So you'll get a fear, a fright response, even thinking about it. So, and as you say, back to the moment you go in a flash.
back in the day, you didn't tell anyone about what had happened, and did that person ever apologise to you and own up to what they'd done and say sorry?
No.
Great.
Don't,
Well, that's just not good.
Not to be expected.
No, and I've removed that from my kind of list of things that need to happen. I have no interest in. I don't need to seek that, and I can't seek that, actually. That's kind of outside of the sphere of what I can control.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to only handle the things that I can control.
Well done.
Very
you
wise.
talked a few minutes ago about red flags. Can you give us some ideas of a couple of those red flags?
I can. I think Oprah, and I'll misquote her horribly here, so I apologise, but she said something about, your brain or the universe will give you a little whisper, and then it'll give you a little shake, and then it'll, smack you about a bit, and then it'll hit you with a truck. So I didn't listen to the whispers or anything like that. And the whispers come from all sorts of places. So when you notice that it's harder to get out of bed than it should be, when a lot of your mornings you wake with dread instead of excitement about what the day brings. And I would say when that's happening more mornings than not, then that's a concern. If you find that you can't do the things that you used to do, and the things that we need to do for our brain are always the first things that drop off. So if you used to, get out with the dog and go around the block before dinner every night and you just can't manage that anymore, that's a little tap on the shoulder. If anybody says to you, "Are you okay? You look tired?" If that starts to become a constant refrain, if you're crying more than normal, these are mine. I shouldn't say you. I was crying more than normal. If you're doing things that are unhealthy for you more than normal, eating more, drinking more, playing on your phone for hours and hours at a time, shopping more, gambling more, there's a whole range of behaviours that are all about getting a bit of a mental lift, but deep down they're not great for you. If that's happening and you've got a little niggle that says, "I wonder if this is out of control," if you're asking yourself that question, that's a tap on the shoulder. And I'll tell you a red flag that I think a lot of us don't see as a red flag is people saying, "How do you manage all that?
Okay.
How do you do it all?" So that is said as a compliment. It's meant as a compliment. It's, "Oh my God, Wonder Woman, you're amazing. How do you do it all?" Nowadays, if someone says that to me, I'm like, well, what exactly is it that you're seeing that makes you think I shouldn't be managing all of this? And I'll have a think about that. Because if you're doing more than the average person and people are awed by you, it might feel nice to have them say that to you, but at the end of the day, when you get into bed, are you really better off for that? And the understanding that we've all got choices around that. The world doesn't fall apart when you stop. It's a horrible thing to realise, but it's true. The flags started getting a little bit stronger because I wasn't listening to that mental sort of the voices saying, "Why am I so sad? Why am I, why when I leave my radio job does my face hurt? It's because I'd had to hold it in this expression for hours. And when I left, it would freeze and I couldn't even make a smile go on my face if I used my fingers. My sleep was terribly disrupted, and that's actually an early warning sign if your sleep is disrupted. I started to shake. I got tremors. I got sores on my head. I got ulcers in my mouth. I started to get pimples. At one point, I got boils over my whole body. So it became extremely physical. My guts went to hell. You know, if I wasn't near a bathroom, I was in awful trouble because my guts went to hell. And I went to the doctor. I got dizzy spells that were like really debilitating. I was going to the doctor for all these physical things, and it wasn't until I went to a psychologist that I found out that all of them are symptoms of extreme stress.
Yeah, right.
And then I started having really dark thoughts, and, you know, by then the red flags don't matter anymore. You know you're in trouble. And I would say to Mick sometimes, you know, I feel like I'm at the bottom of a well, and I know the things I need to do to be better. And I know that thoughts attract like thoughts, and that getting up and moving helps you. But I had gone so far that I couldn't do the things I knew I needed to do. I knew what I needed to do. I physically couldn't do it. I couldn't get onto a positive train of thought if, well, my life depended on it. And it did. I could not have fitted another thing into my day to make myself well. I'd said, I know I need to climb towards that little speck of light up there. I cannot find a toe hold.
Yeah.
And in the end, I was so sick and so sad. The anxiety would attack me at times where I thought I was actually going to have a heart attack. I started to believe that I had run out of life force. I started to believe that I had lived so much life. You know, I'd been loved so much. I'd been gifted so much and blessed so much. I'd achieved so much that I'd used up my share of life. I'd used up all the energy I'd been given. I'd used up all the life I'd been given, all the blessings, all the love. I'd used it all up. And it wasn't fair for me to stick around and try and steal more. And so down at the bottom of the well, with no toe hold to get out, there only seemed to be the one solution. And it hurts me, you can tell, it hurts me to say it now. But that's where I was. That's where I was, and that's what I believed. In my unwell mind, I believed with all of my heart that was the only fair, correct thing for me to do. And gosh, looking back at that from here, oh, thank God that I was hauled out of that well. I was hauled out and forced. I was forced into a situation where that was no longer an option to me. All those options were taken away, you know. They put you in a room with no sharp edges and nothing you can tie anything to and nothing you can hurt yourself with. And they keep you there until you're through that. Yeah, and I guess I just reached that point, you know, we talk about surrender, and I reached that point where I just said, well, I've tried so hard to get through this and I have failed so badly that I need to now surrender myself to what other people are telling me. And some of what they're telling me will stick and some of it will work and some of it won't, but hopefully enough will stick to see me through to the next thing. And that's what's happened. And I have been through some amazing therapies and experiences, and I've been through some really terrible experiences on this road to healing as well. And that's where I sort of come to that position where it's not all going to be for you. And just because one thing isn't, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Just persist and keep trying and keep plugging away, because this life is worth living. It is worth living, and somebody loves you even if you can't feel it right now. And I never felt that nobody loved me. I felt they loved me too much. But the people who love you want you here.
Indeed,
Sure.
indeed.
Yeah.
Julie, as you think back to when you first you can recognise now what your beginning red flags were. If you could give yourself some advice back at the beginning red flags, what would you be saying about taking that first step?
Acknowledge it. You know, we have all these beautiful initiatives, so Are You OK Day and so forth, where we say, you know, be aware of the people around you and ask them if they're okay. We need to do that for ourselves. First step is to do it for ourselves. I would say even before those red flags, to make a habit of asking ourselves, look at yourself in the mirror and say, are you okay? And give yourself the gift of an honest answer. And if the answer is no, give yourself the gift of speaking up. And that is not, it's not a natural thing for many of us. And I think that some of it is generational. I think that some of us were raised by a generation who came through wars and depression and who were raised by people who came through wars and depression, and for whom any mention that I am struggling is ingratitude, you know, that it's a selfishness or a weakness or, you know, you've got to look on the bright side. You've got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You've got to keep your chin up. Fake it till you make it, you know, whistle a happy tune. All those things that I live my life by, and they are all valid in their place until you're doing that instead of addressing what could be festering along underneath. So my advice would be check in with yourself, and check in with yourself when you're feeling good. And then you'll notice, you know, you'll notice when things aren't so good. You know, being aware of what's going on in our bodies is a really valid way to figure out. And it's those things, you know, if you don't feel any excitement or any joy at the start of any day, you're already on a path that you need to address. But, you know, if we can catch ourselves and say, why am I feeling so stressed at the moment? What choices can I make to ease this burden? And this is a really big learning that I've had from my psychologist too, is that some choices are really hard, but it's all choices. And you can say, well, I have to work 7 days a week and 12 hours a day. Otherwise, I can't pay these bills. And, oh, my God, that's all so valid. You've got to put food on the table. You've got to keep a roof over the head. You've got to do those things. But there are choices within that, you know. I had a room full of people, they're in the financial sector, and this lady put her hand up and said, well, not everything's a choice. If my boss comes to me and I'm just packing up my desk and I have to leave and it's 5 o'clock and they say, these reports have to be finished for start a business tomorrow, you have to do them. And I sort of said, well, I mean, there's still a choice and it is a hard choice, but you could choose to say, actually, I need to leave.
Indeed.
Your choice will have consequences. And the consequences might be that you don't have a job tomorrow. And then you've got to look at how that looks, you know, and really, is that the catastrophe that it sounds like, or are there other options out there? Would closing that door open other doors for you? Now, I'm well aware there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you are on the breadline and you're literally looking for your next meal or somewhere to put over your head, then that's not a choice. That becomes addressing of a need. But for many of us, we feel like there's no choice, but maybe there is. And maybe if you close that door, other doors will open. I had to shut my business because it was killing me. And I said to my beautiful therapist, I can't afford to close it. And she said, well, how much is a funeral, Julie? Because
you can't afford
that's what your family's going to be paying for very soon. So then I made that choice, and I am still almost 3 years later, and I will be for a long time, paying off that business that no longer earns an income.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a choice I made, and what it did was open other doors for me, that I can earn an income in other ways, that I can do other things. At the end of that conference, these two women came up to me, and they were from all different businesses. It was all in the financial sector. These two women came up to me. They looked so excited. They said, guess what? I said, what? And she said, we're going to quit.
Well done.
my God.
Like, oops.
Oh, influencer.
Don't tell them today. Okay? Don't tell them today. I'll never get hired again. But, you know, it's just an illustration that there are options outside. You know, when you feel caught and you feel trapped, I promise you, there are choices, there are ways, there are people, there are things, there is hope, there is light, there is life.
It must be very liberating to give yourself those choices, isn't it? So that you actually think, you know what, I actually can. I can choose to leave. And something else will come up, like you say.
Yeah.
But Julie, I really want to know, like, with all of this going on inside you and all of that processing and all of those things that happened, why would you put yourself through something like MasterChef, which to me would be the most stressful experience in the universe?
Oh, no, when on the first one, I didn't know it was going to be stressful.
Oh, yes, it was the first one, wasn't it? That's right.
I've been watching the UK one, which is this beautiful, civilised little British thing, you know, where they're all lovely and they go home at the end of the day and it goes for about 6 weeks and they have some fun and they come out better cooks. That's what I thought I was signing up for. I didn't know. But, gosh, I'll never regret it.
No.
You know, I'll never regret it. Going back on for season 14 that was another thing. I knew exactly what I was getting in for then. But it had a fate kind of feeling about it, and something told me that I actually ought to say yes to that thing. It flew in the face of logic. I was literally 3 weeks out of a stay in hospital when I got the phone call.
Wow.
I did it with the support of my husband, my sons, and I did it with the support of my psychologist, who she just said, look, you've come to me with 2 broken legs and said you want to walk the Kokoda track, but if that's what you want to do, then we'll do it together. But, you know, one of the big learnings that came out of me for that, I went back to them with a laundry list of diva demands, is what I'm going to say, but actually what they were boundaries. So when I went back to them, I said, look, I could maybe, because it was a hard no when they rang. I said, don't, no, it's ridiculous. I can't do that to my family. I can't do that to myself. I'm just out of the psych ward. I'm healing. I've been really, really unwell. And he said, look, don't answer now. So pretty sure I just did. Don't answer now. I'll have some think about it and I'll call you tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So by tomorrow. So it's being filmed in Melbourne. I knew the living circumstances had changed. They weren't all in one house anymore, in little apartments. I said I need my car, so I would need parking there because I need to swim in the mornings. Whenever I can before filming, I need to be able to get out to whatever kind of exercise I need to do. I need my own space. I can't share an apartment. I need my technology. I need to be able to have access to my family. I need to speak to my psychologist once a week at least in amongst the filming. That happens on weekdays. I need 8 hours sleep a night. My sleep routine is the number one thing we had to fix, and I will not compromise that. So I just said to them all these things that I needed, and they all felt really unrealistic. And I said, and I also need you to understand that if it's all too much, I need to be able to walk out of those doors without breaching a contract or upsetting anything. So there you go.
Yeah.
And he just said to me, you've not said anything to me that we can't do.
Wow.
Wow. That's fantastic.
And what I learned from that was laying down boundaries. And guess what happened? What I thought was a huge deal was not a huge deal for them. In fact, most of those things were already in place. They work a 5-day week. Fridays were interview days, and they were happy to work my interviews around my psychology appointment. They were happy for me to Zoom my psych Plus, they provided another psychologist down there for any given time of the day or night for everybody. They had a couple of caveats, you know, they'll be filming on the weekend occasionally if we're doing a trip or whatever, so forth. So what I learned was, lay down the bloody boundaries and either that can happen or it can't. And if it can't, then it's like, okay, then I can't.
Yeah,
you know,
they're empowering.
How did I get to be in my 50s before I realised that, you know?
Yeah, it's true.
I've never asked anything, you know, always the, yep, I can do that, and then gone away going, oh, my God, how am I going to do that? You know, it's so empowering. And that's not everybody's issue, but it's been one of mine, that I cannot lay down boundaries, and even if I do, I can't hold them. I'm learning that, like a bloody foal learning to walk, you know. But I have I have figured that out in that way, that I did that thing, those massive boundaries, with a massive sort of outcome at the end of it. I'm either going to go on this sort of another juggernaut TV show where I'm going to be pushed to my limits, or I'm going to sit at home and watch it and maybe be really sad that I'm not there. You know, FOMO.
Yes.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was another big learning. Learn to ask for what you need, and actually learn to ask people for help as well. Not just lay down boundaries, but actually say, I can't take that on right now. Could you maybe take on a little bit of that, and I'll take on a little bit of that? Or, you know, there's too much on my plate here. Can you help me? And the thing that I've learned about that is that this is kind of huge, because when I got sick and I was taken into the hospital and I was being seen by the acute care team, right, as you do when you reach that point, and they said to me, you need to be an inpatient in a psych unit. And I just said, well, that's ridiculous. Our radio show goes back on air in a few days. Can't do it. And I remember I looked at my husband for confirmation. He's going to be sitting there going, well, she can't do it. She's got a radio show. She's got a cooking school. And Mick was just sort of looking at me, and he said, it sounds right to me. And that took the legs right out from under me. So I thought I had no choice. And then all of a sudden, if I was taken out of my life, I had to let the radio station know I'm not going to be back in time. They've got me in this funny little room with no locking doors and no sharp objects. My staff, I'm not going to be at the kitchen when we reopen in January. I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be there. What's going to happen? Well, you know what happened?
Nothing.
Everyone else stepped up and did what needed to be done. You know, the radio station's still on air. Can you believe it? Without me.
Impossible. Yes.
The cooking school ran without me. It all happened without me. And not only was that a massive blow to my ego, but it was very liberating.
Yes.
And what it allowed other people to step in and do things that I never trusted them to do. It allowed people to rally around my family and hold them up and support them and love them. You know, it allowed people to step in and put their arms around me. I've never allowed that. I'm the one. I'm the supporter. I'm the helper. I'm the one who brings meals to the household in trouble. I alone can fix it. You know, what an ego. My ego was stuck in a hospital room, and my kids didn't starve. I mean, they're adults now. They shouldn't, or should they? Taught them to cook. My husband managed to dress himself every morning, as he has for many years. My household didn't burn down.
That's good. That's good.
He wears odd socks. That's okay.
That's very, very on trend.
All his clients know he's probably going to have odd socks on, but he hasn't lost the clients. It's incredible to me how wrapped up we get in our own self-importance, you know, and how if I don't do these things, they're not going to be done properly, they're not going to be done on time, they're not going to be done the way I want them done. So what? So what? The world is not going to burn, you know. And the lesson for me in that is we are not as important as we think we are. We are more loved than we know.
Good lesson.
Gosh, Julie.
We are far more important than the sum total of the little tasks that we do every day. And at the end of every day, that's what we're doing, a lot of tasks and a lot of things that there are perfectly capable humans around us that can also do. Let some of it go, surrender some of it. It's so liberating. Sometimes you can say, fuck it, let's go to the beach and get some fish and chips.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
I'm not cooking tonight. I cannot go to the shops and think about what's for dinner and come home and deal with that one more night. Everybody meet me at the beach. Whatever it is that frees you or gives you a moment of, hey, I have choice. I have a choice here. And tonight it's going to be sausages on bread. That is my choice. And sometimes that is the most delicious thing in the whole wide world, but it didn't take a single bit of effort, you know?
Sausages are the best.
Sausage Sanger, you know?
Yeah. Or you're going to have a burnt hard-boiled egg. Who cares?
Yes, indeed.
A burnt hard-boiled egg.
Yeah.
And you look at the smoke and it's like, I'm going to open the windows, we're going to get in the car and we're going to go get a pizza.
Smoked egg.
Exactly.
It's a bit of self-forgiveness and self-compassion and kindness. Yeah.
Oh, gorgeous. There was a really poignant moment in your book and in your story where you talk about these angels that came along at one of the lowest points of your life. This was before you kind of went into hospital and got that treatment. But these people were angels, right? I mean, do you think, acknowledge that they probably were?
Oh, without a doubt. At the lowest moment, I was gifted with strangers who just, I don't know, what synchronicities and blessings were flying around me at that moment, and them. They just recognised a soul in distress, and they knew. They passed me and they came back and just said, "You look like somebody who needs some company right now." And it was annoying because they were in the way of what I had planned. So my initial reaction was just, oh my God, I'm in the middle of something here.
Yeah.
But they came and they sat with their dog and they didn't go anywhere for a couple of hours.
Wow.
And that couple of hours and the talk and the dog kisses and all of that just took me through what I needed to get through, whatever that was at that moment. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. There was nobody else around that day. There was nobody else. I didn't pass a single car on my walk to that place. I didn't pass another human being. They were the only souls, and they recognised that they needed to sit with me. And I don't know what needed to happen for them. They had children at home, I don't know what needed to happen for them on that afternoon or that evening in that moment. But whatever it was, they let it go and just sat with me and were present to me for a couple of hours.
Wow.
How beautiful.
I noticed, in your book, it's such a deeply moving kind of chapter, but between each chapter there's a little bit of light relief to release that pressure cooker, because I was delighted to discover a recipe for curried mango chutney.
Whoa.
And I was like, oh, thank goodness, I can breathe a little now.
That's exactly why they're there, those recipes. Well, I mean, for a start, I'm a cook and that's what I'm known for, recipes. It's what I do. But it's kind of like, talk about sort of the whole world just going dark, and then you're all sort of up in that, and then you turn the page and go, sausage rolls.
Yes, right.
And actually, not very many people realise this, but the title of every chapter is a song as well. So every chapter title is a song title, and it bears relevance to what's in that chapter. So
hang on a minute.
There you go. You missed that bit, Janet.
I did. Oh, Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
Hot and Cold. I don't know that one, but yeah.
Katy Perry.
Yes.
It's the theme song to
MasterChef.
MasterChef.
Yes. Of course.
There's, Going Under is the name of the chapter that you're talking about.
Yes.
And so that's an Evanescence song that resonated with me. And music's played a very big role in my life, a very big role for my whole life. So between the recipes and the song titles and all of that, it's I've poured quite a lot into that book. There's a lot of me in that book. And I left nothing. On the field.
No leftovers.
No.
And gorgeous, you talk about your recovery as being a wavy line and also a cliff with a trampoline at the bottom. I'm really keen to know what you mean by all of that.
Well, when I first went into hospital, I was pretty impatient about the whole thing. Come on, let's get this done. Got shit I've got to achieve here. Yeah. Let's just, come on, fix me, whatever. I'll do whatever. I'll do whatever you say. I'll take whatever you want. I'll be whoever, let's fix this. I went home from hospital expecting to be fixed, and only a couple of months later I was back. I was really peeved because I had done all the things. I was taking the medicine, all the exercise, all the dietary stuff. I was doing all the things that I was told to do, and it wasn't working. And so I went back in and I was very unpleasant to the doctor, very blunt. I said, I'm just going to speak my mind. This has all been bullshit. It doesn't work. So get me on some stronger drugs or find me a better doctor.
How did that work for you?
And I was like, well, Julie, not sure if you know how this works. But, you know. And what I came to realise was that there's not a point A and a point B. It's not a broken bone that you put a plaster on and it's fixed. It's more like your brain is more like a car, a jalopy, a lemon that needs servicing. And it needs fuel and it needs oil and it needs to be looked at on the regular. And you can't just put petrol in it once and take it to be serviced once and then drive it for the rest of your life. That is not how it works. It's not how it works for your car. It's not how it works for your brain. You need to keep servicing it. You need to keep giving it oil. You need to keep maintaining it. You've got to find the things that work for your car, and brains are a bit more complex than cars, so it's going to be different for everybody. And this is why I'm super resistant to talking about what drugs, what exercise, what things, because it's going to be different for everybody, and I'm conscious of that, and I don't want to prescribe anything to anyone because I am not a medical expert. I'm not a diet expert. I hate telling people, oh, what are you doing there? You've got to find that out for yourself. What I know is you've got to do something. So if life's not working out for you, find someone and do something, and you'll figure that out as you go along. That's the wavy line. And sometimes it's working as charm, and sometimes all the same things aren't working a charm. I've only said to my husband, and you may notice I've been quite close to tears a couple of times, you know, he's like, what's going on? And I'm dancing with the devil the last couple of days. I don't know why, and there's not always a reason why. It's not necessarily that I've overloaded myself. It just might be that's the wavy line that I'm on. My therapist gave me the beautiful analogy, which I wish you would have told me before I wrote my book, because I would freak out. I'd say, oh, my God, I'm getting sad again. I'm going to end up in a hospital, catastrophise. Yeah. She said, think of it like a hotel, and you check into the sad hotel and you stay there for a day or two, and then you check back out and you come home. It's okay. It's okay to stay at the sad hotel for a day at home. And sometimes stress or sadness is an appropriate response to what's happening in your life. It is appropriate. We have a range of emotions for a reason. It's just when it sticks around that you've got to start to worry about it. So check in, be aware that you need to check out after a few days. And if you're not checking out, then we'll talk again. That was helpful. To me, the trampoline at the bottom of the cliff, you fall off that cliff because things go to hell sometimes, and things happen, and the best laid plans fall awry, and you may have fallen off the cliff, but you've got to keep aiming for the trampoline so you can bounce back up, and not everyone always finds the trampoline. Those strangers in that park were my trampoline that day. I only just caught the edge of it, But I think it's really important to understand that just because you've got things going on, and this is again why I'm so resistant, and it's so funny to me that now that all that stuff I've been doing it for over 4 years. It's 4 years ago now nearly that I stopped drinking, and that exercise, only in the last couple of years has started to become something that I kind of enjoy, that I feel like, I've got to get to the gym rather than, It's weird to me that now that that's starting to have an impact on the way I look, that people are like, oh, my God, you're looking amazing. What are you doing? Actually, what I'm doing is stuff for my brain. I don't want to talk to you about what I'm doing for my body, because that is not a big picture. That is a tiny picture. And the reality is, in a month's time, I might have put 10 kilos on. And then what's everyone who's followed my regime going to say? Yes. Oh, God, she's fat again. I have gone up and down. My weight has gone up and down my whole adult life. And I've only realised in the writing of this book that started when that memory came back. My weight has gone up and down my whole adult life. So I will not prescribe to people what they should do while I'm at a lower point, because nobody's asking me for that advice when I'm at a higher point, and I don't have the answers. The only answers I have to give you are find what works for you. Do what you need to do in consultation with the professionals that you put around you in your life, because that's what needs to happen. I had a bit of a go at a poor radio host yesterday.
Oh, cool.
Do tell. He's a guy who I've known for a lot of years, and so he probably felt familiar enough to say to me on air, on Brekkie Radio, oh, saw you on Sunrise the other morning. You're looking terrific. How much weight have you lost? How many kilos have you lost?
Ooh.
And I just went, "Oh, come on, mate, you're not going to comment on my body size on the radio, are you?" He rang me later and apologised. But I just think that's no longer a valid conversation to be having, because anyone with body image issues, any kid, any teenage girl, I've got a granddaughter now, and I will not have her raised like I was in the 80s, where we're all terrified about how we look.
Yeah.
You know, where every other girl has an eating disorder and the only acceptable bodies are twig thin. Twig thin bodies are acceptable. Big bodies are acceptable. It's our minds we have to take care of. That's it, as far as I'm concerned. We just need to stop shaming people.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm being shamed now for losing weight. So I can't
crazy,
win.
isn't it? Yeah.
I can't win. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Dancing's a good way to keep fit. But
Bloody oath. Bloody oath.
jeez.
It's a good way to injure yourself too, by the way.
Oh, yes, right. That's
Dancing
right.
injuries.
That's right. I remember that. So, Gorgeous, your time starts now. What's cooking next for Julie Goodwin?
Like, I used to be able to say, "Oh, I've got a radio show and I run a cooking school." It was so easy to answer that question. And now it's like, I don't really know what I do. I'm developing this program. That's part of what I'm doing up at the detention centre. I am working on another cookbook. That won't be out until next year, though, so it's always a sort of a faraway thing.
Slow burn.
I'm doing speaking now, so I'm on the speaking circuit, and I'm getting quite a lot of call-ups around, Mental Health Month and, corporate responsibility to mental health and that kind of thing, which is great. That gives me a real sense of purpose. I'm really happy about that. So the speaking circuit is kind of when I'm doing a lot of things. Now, I still do some cooking demos and do some TV presenting from time to time. And I'm back with the Australian Women's Weekly.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, they've got me back as a monthly columnist. I'm so thrilled because I was 10 years, just shy of 10 years with them. And I've had a break of 6 years, and so I'm back now. So that's really exciting. That's just happened in this current issue. I do a podcast with my old radio host. We're still very, very good mates, and we do Podvan podcast, which is, right into your space there. But I jump in the van with him every now and again, and we just have a laugh. We're good mates, and we were both very sad when I couldn't do that show anymore. So we sort of rekindled that a little bit. Bits and bobs. I do a lot of art now. Yeah. So I love painting, and I'm reintroducing things into my life that brought me joy as a child. Yeah. That's been prescribed to me by my doctor, so I'm happy with that prescription. And I make a lot of time for family, so I'm much more conscious of bringing home a better version of myself at the end of my day. If I'm too exhausted at the end of my day to enjoy my granddaughter, then something's out of whack. Yeah. So I pick her up from preschool a couple of days a week. And, last night she drags a little stool over and she helped me make hamburgers on the, mixing up the mince and patting them into patties. And, she's just shown a natural inclination to do that. I've never forced that with her. And it swells me and fills me with so much love in my heart. It's got to be good. It's got to be good. Those are where my priority lies. It's first is family and mental health. Those are the big rocks in my jar, and everything else has to settle in around that. I've got to pay the bills, obviously, so I've got to work, but I get to choose what work I do.
Oh, brilliant. That's brilliant.
Well, Gorgeous, I just have one last final sort of a mystery box question for you. It wasn't on your list of questions that we gave you. But if Jenny and I came over to your place for dinner tonight, what might be on your menu for us?
So last night was little build your own burgers.
Yes, love that.
Potentially, I love a Thai curry. That's a nice quick
Thai
to
curry.
whip up.
Yeah.
Or,
we'll be there. What time are we going?
Pasta. I do a bacon mushroom pasta that the whole family just loves, and I've always got the ingredients for. Yeah, stuff like that. That's my walk through the door, get dinner on the table in 25 minutes, half an hour sort of stuff.
Well, I'll bring the Eton mess, and then
I'll bring the hard-boiled egg. Yeah. How's that sound?
Awesome.
Well, Gorgeous, thank you so much, Julie, for just being on She Wasn't Born Yesterday. You've just given so much wisdom to everyone, and everyone who's ever been in that situation, just all the learnings that we can take from your experiences. And that's one of the beauties of being a podcast that's for women who are 40 plus is learning from life's experiences and having those experiences.
That's my whole goal in writing this book and in speaking to you guys, that hopefully someone can take something from, recognise those earlier stages of burnout or of sadness and do something about it at that point where it's so much easier to manage and just not go to the bottom of the well.
Yeah,
Thank you so much
beautiful.
for your honesty and your openness.
Well, a big Adriano Zumbo profiterole tower shaped thank you.
Yeah, indeed, what
And I'm
she
back
said.
at trauma.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate your time.
If you're going through a hard time, please call Lifeline in Australia on 13 11 14. Or if impacted by sexual assault, domestic or family violence, call 1800 RESPECT. Julie's memoir, Your Time Starts Now, is available at all fabulous booksellers. Gorgi, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this ep as much as we did.
And why not join us for more insider goss and sneaky pics on our Facebook group called, strangely enough, She Wasn't Born Yesterday.
So jump on the socials and see you next time, or rather, chat soon.
Hope 1032. Thanks for listening.